The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, and we're going to deviate from the format of, it's not going to be this different format, it's still a fucking podcast. Video and audio, by the way. If you want to get into a draw for 100 DraftKings dollars, you need some DraftKings dollars at this moment for when DraftKings and full sports end up coming back. Here's what you do. You subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, you leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, something you like about the show, and boom, you're in that draw for 100 DK bucks. You want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks? Smash the like button for the episode, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and tell me your favorite character from the new Netflix docuseries Tiger King, which I am talking about today because I have done the binge already, and I will be discussing it with everyone's favorite guest, Tim Anderson.
Tim Anderson.
It's not my name. My name is Dr. Tim Anderson, DOCANDERSON, Doc Anderson.
So there's a lot to unpack with this. Because everyone's on quarantine, maybe people are watching this 8 years from now because they really just got into Tiger King for the first time. Big Joe Exotic fans, maybe he's getting out of prison. So, by the way, spoilers are going to be had here.
Good job. Good job.
But this dropped at such a weird moment. It reminds, it's what everyone is talking about because there's so little new to consume at the moment. Everyone's at home. Everyone's on quarantine. Everyone has Netflix, and this thing just drops out of nowhere. My wife and I just plowed through it because, we have nothing else to do at the moment besides me shooting shows talking about stuff that I'm watching on TV. I don't even know if it's good or not, but the premise, I was hooked from, the first 5 minutes of watching. I know some people don't like it, but what else new is coming out? It reminds me of that Christmas that Making a Murderer came out and everyone just kind of binged it over the holidays and it's all everyone could talk about for 2 weeks. This has the same sort of feel to it, to me at least.
Absolutely. We're all like Mr. Burns and Homer looking to dress the snowmen to try to get rid of cabin fever for a couple hours. And this just appears out of nowhere. And within the first 5 minutes, insane things are happening. So you're like, yeah, all right, I'll watch this. I got nothing else to do.
Well, does anyone really do you find that there's any character development of this? Because after watching the first 10 minutes of Tiger King, I'm like, Joe Exotic, I'm all in. I get why this guy is a thing.
Yeah, there's no development. These people are all who they are, and in the main, they're all crazy people.
Oh yeah,
not all of them. Some people are better than others.
Just to collect exotic animals to begin with, I think you need to be a little bit off. You're an insane person, but these people are insaner people, I think.
Yeah, the scene where they're like, "Hey, check out this snow leopard I've got in the back of my van." He's like, "What? It can't be good for a snow leopard to be in a van." No, if they're born in Florida, they're fine. What the hell does that mean?
There's also weird themes that go throughout this. So I want to start out with my favorite parts of this. Joe Exotic, not a bad singer at all.
No, his music is not. No, yeah, I completely agree with you. His music isn't bad. That's the least crazy thing he's doing.
Yeah, if he had just not sung about tigers all the time and lions and he was just a general country music person, you could sell me that he's a popular recording artist. It sounds the same to me as the rest of country music does.
He missed his calling.
His voice is pretty good.
Agreed. I totally agreed.
So, and then there's the other music video which appears halfway, maybe episode 3, episode 4. What's the woman's name that he hates? Because he always calls her by her first and last name.
Oh, Carol. Carol Baskin.
Yeah, Carol Baskin. She has a music video that appears. It's someone else in it, but it's real low budget. It's kind of crappy. The music sucks. All of Joe Exotic's music videos are top notch.
Well, everything Carol does is the same thing that Joe Exotic does, but a step worse. So it's not surprising that her music video would be a step worse than his.
So before we unpack the whole Carol, Joe, and what's the other guy's name? Who's
Doc Antle.
Doc Antle, but his fake first name is the Lord or something like that.
Yeah, well, he's got a crazy name. That's why I started spelling my name to start the show, because when we're introduced to him, he starts spelling and saying his name over and over again, which is a sure sign that someone's crazy.
So that's probably true. I mean, that's why you're an insane person. That's why you do this. I don't even think you were trying to mimic him. I think you just do that out of habit.
Oh no, you've caught me.
Yeah, see, this is how I know. This is how I knew you were an insane person. When you introduce yourself and spell your name. These people remind me of like you know how I always have the theory that if anyone ever says, you gotta believe me, that they're probably a crazy person. Like these people all fall into that bucket.
They most certainly do.
So I guess we'll break down each of the 3 primaries and then the rest of the people and maybe their stories as it goes along. But the other thing, there's a weird subplot that I felt like really hit close to home for me. It's the part where your boy, Rick Kirkman, is talking like he's the producer who they bring in to do everything. But Joe Exotic didn't realize when he signed the contract that Rick Kirkman owned all of his content. I thought that was a very like weirdly topical thing for 2020 in stuff that people encounter with doing content online these days.
Yeah, I mean, Kirkman was just basically there to try to squeeze every dime out of this that he could before he could tell very quickly that the wheels were going to come off the axles. And so he was doing what best he could to prop up Joe and keep the show going and keep things on the steady so he could try to exact as much cash from it as possible. And he feels guilty about it because at the end he talks about what remorse he has while he's hauling on his 14th cigarette of the afternoon.
I mean, there has not been anything I've watched on TV in a long time that has had this much smoking in it.
Well, it's funny. As soon as this starts up on Netflix, the first thing it says for warnings is one of them is smoking. I said, really? How much smoking could there be for there to be a warning? And the first scene is him lighting a cig. And I was like, all right, I guess this is where we're going.
But like there's a lot of smoking just in general of like just people casually sitting around or even in their interviews smoking cigarettes. Yes, but there's just a lot of people doing like random work that, I mean, we both smoke, but I can't smoke without my hand on the cigarette. And there's a lot of people like smoking hands-free in this while they're doing other stuff. Like I can't do that. I don't have the coordination to smoke without like, well, I'm also like I don't like to walk and smoke at the same time.
I smoke when I'm having a break when I have a smoke. I'm not going to like rake a cage and have a cig dangling from my mouth while I do it. Like that doesn't compute with me either. Also, if I was going to be on camera, I wouldn't have a smoke in my mouth.
I don't think that these people
were that to act on TV.
If you were one of the members of Joe Exotic's crew, I don't think that's the first thing that's like popping into your mind.
No, you just try not to do meth if you're in his crew.
I mean, you could tell by the tooth retention, the amount of meth that was going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was a disturbing show in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but it seems so farcical that it never, for as much like as serious as the subject matter is and all like the crazy shit that goes down, it all seems like kind of fake in a way. Like it doesn't seem like it's a part of our reality.
Like when the guy shot himself in the head, the video they had, like, was that a reenactment?
No,
was that the actual video where the guy shot himself?
Pretty sure that was the real video.
Because like the campaign manager really doesn't react much in that video to start with.
He thinks the way that he describes it, as he was described in our group chat when we were all talking about this, as discount you.
Yeah, I don't believe by the guy's like, I don't care who he is. I've always wanted to be a campaign manager, so I'll just take this guy. Like, that's insane.
Well, I mean, he was the ammo representative at Walmart before he got this job. Like, that feels like a step up.
Joe went in every day to buy ammo.
Well, throughout the course of this documentary, he's doing a lot of shooting.
He is, but he's going in every day to buy ammo.
Well, I mean, where did he
was? To this day, I don't know if he knows what a libertarian is.
Well, when you have to shoot so many mannequins, then you're going to need a lot of ammo.
Very, very bizarre.
So let's start with Joe Exotic. Joe Exotic is, if people have watched, I don't know why you would be watching or listening to this if you haven't seen it yet. Maybe you just want to know what all the buzz is all about. But Joe Exotic owns a bunch of tigers and made his own, like... it was very unclear to me how the zoo got started. Like, did he just start collecting these things and then he had them in cages? Then all of a sudden he's like, wow, I have so many, I could just have a zoo. So I'll build a homemade zoo in my backyard. Is that how this worked?
Yeah, like after he had his car crash, he like part of his recovery was dealing with these like big cats, and it just became an obsession for him. And yeah, like it began like at the end, right? They're showing the clips of him like not wanting to be a zookeeper and wanting these animals in the wild, but eventually the money got too good and he just became a lover of the big cats. And not just tigers. I mean, he's got lions, he's got little snow leopards, he's got cougars, He's got all kinds of big animals in there.
I guess I'll start here. By the
But that's not where the money is. The money's in underwear.
Yeah, the money's in the money's in breeding these things and selling them off on the black market, as we find out. But out of all the people, who do you think is the most sympathetic person in all of this? Because I still feel like it's kind of Joe Exotic.
Well, I'm not going to be sympathetic because he did try to pay $3,000 to have somebody killed.
Oh, did he actually do that though? Because I feel like he may not have.
I think he did.
I feel like he was coerced into that by that. Like that other guy is like, now I can't even remember his name. I'm so bad.
His name is Josh.
Is John?
Josh, I think.
The guy from Vegas who comes in. I'm gonna look up what his name is. Like for whatever reason, I just watched this like 3 hours ago. Now I can't remember.
And that guy's a real piece of work.
Yeah, but it feels like he was coerced by that, like him and his like murderous buddy who he brought on board to like really get Joe Exotic into trouble. Like Joe Exotic to me seems like a very sensitive soul. He has a lot of problems going on. He got addicted to the fame that came around it, but at heart, he didn't really seem like that bad of a guy.
At least he didn't begin that way. That's certainly. I mean, he was still selling animal cubs for money and all kinds of stuff that's illegal. But
okay, how about in the context of the people on this program? I felt like he was the most sympathetic. Jeff Lowe is the guy's name, by the way.
Jeff, that's his name. I knew it started with a J. Jeff.
But out of the three primaries, you have Carol and you have Dr. Zayas, or the fuck,
Doc
Antle, and Joe Exotic. I feel like Joe Exotic was the most sympathetic of the three of them.
Definitely. I think that's correct. I didn't like Carol, I have to say.
I can't imagine anyone watching this and liking Carol. Although, I mean, if she didn't actually kill her husband, then she's probably not that bad of a person.
Yeah, I mean, just the little things. Remember when she's walking through the cemetery of all the gravestones and the guy is trying to explain stuff? And she's like, why are you standing so close to me? Why don't you explain with it stuff? And I was like, what's going on here? That's weird. Maybe awkward.
Maybe she was just ahead of the curve on social distancing.
Or, she's got... she's allergic to cats.
Oh, the saddest part of the entire thing, I think it's from the very first episode. It's like the first time we see Carol Baskin, and it cuts to her in her house, and she has those two white cats.
Yes. Oh, my God.
And she says that she didn't have any friends growing up, which is pretty sad. And then her only friends were two imaginary cats. And that's what those two things were.
She makes this reference to the imaginary cat friends that she had. And all she wears is animal prints, because that's how people take her seriously, you see. She goes to Capitol Hill. She dresses up in leopard print.
Yeah, she dresses up in leopard print on Capitol Hill, so no one makes a big... people both remember her, but that's also how people take her seriously. And then she gets on the dock for bringing, like, actual live animals to Capitol Hill.
Yeah, exactly. And she's got a husband who stores champagne to celebrate.
I can't... Like, that guy, I
don't know.
He might be the weirdest, but, like, if you told me, like, one of these people in this documentary is a serial killer, it would be him.
It's like, we brought the brie and the champagne for this one. It's like, what?
He was just really weird. There was also that guy, I think it's the guy with no legs. He's also really weird.
Yeah, remember they said that he had to go buy business attire, and he's wearing these cheap khakis with zippers on them and a button-down shirt with like 3 buttons done up. Like, that's business attire to him.
Well, he had mentioned that because ever since he had lost his
pants in 20 years.
Yeah, well, he has no legs, so it's tough to wear pants when you have no legs, I guess, and when you can wear shorts all the time. But he was also the same one who had the bullets with their names written on it loaded into his gun in case it came down to that.
Yes. Like, he was the manager there for like 15 years, and they didn't even put him on the stand.
Well, yeah, it seemed like they were just out to get Joe Exotic.
Yeah, well, the government didn't like him trying to run for president.
Well, that's okay.
Well, it was a threat.
Episode 5 is the best episode, right?
1 and 5 are the two best, but yes.
So in episode 5, this is where we learn that Joe Exotic is running for president and then runs for governor. And then when they showed the results, he got 20% of the vote for governor as an independent or a libertarian candidate.
Unbelievable.
And like the exit interviews they have with people about why they voted for Joe Exotic were just like, I don't necessarily agree with his lifestyle, but he's telling it how it is. Like, he was essentially like a less polished version of Trump.
It's funny. The person I thought of was Basil Marceau.
Joe Exotic was a level above Basil Marceau.
Yeah, he's like a higher functioning Basil Marceau.
Yeah, if people don't remember, Basil Marceau ran for governor of Tennessee in 2008, I want to say.
Like that.
Yeah, and you can go like put into YouTube Basil Marceau, and you can see like they have to give. He was running for the Republican nomination for governor of Tennessee, and they had to give every candidate equal airtime to run a commercial. And he did a live commercial on this newscast, and it is one of the hidden gems of the internet.
It certainly is.
But Joe Exotic is like there's a weird phoniness to all of these people, but all in different ways. Like, Joe Exotic really embraces his phoniness.
Yes, I agree with that.
Like, he's a showman, but he's doing live shows with people. Like, even at one point, and even after after he retires and he is no longer allowed on the premises after Jeff takes over, that people are showing up. You're like, hey, where's Joe Exotic? Like, he was kind of the draw beyond the animals. And
he said that at one point. Like, people don't come here to see the animals; they come here to see me.
But that's also a part of him saying that too. But it's like kind of true, where with the other people, like the phoniness that, why do I keep forgetting the guy's name? Doc
Antle doesn't go to Walmart to collect a bunch of meat.
No, well,
the best pizzas in town.
I forgot about that.
How much of that is the surplus Walmart meat? All of it.
And he was letting his crew members pick it off. But like, so if we talk about, like, obviously Joe Exotic ends up being the most dangerous person of all of these people, but it felt like he was coerced into it. He just really hated Carol. Like, it was just it was a real blood feud with Carol.
I mean, he didn't just hate her. I mean, they were right. He was like threatening to kill her and harm her at every turn.
It was, but the other guy, the Doc
Antle.
Doc Antle. I want to say Doc Answer, like Abraham Answer. It's not.
Like when he shows up on that elephant.
Yeah, Doc Antle might be the most dangerous of all these people.
He's certainly the most together.
He's the most together, but he's like, he even says like, oh, a lot of people will say this is like a cult, because that's exactly what it fucking is. He's a cult leader.
He certainly is. And he's completely phony. Like you said, he rides in that elephant and says, oh, we grew up together and you can see we both put on some weight. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, like there is a put together version of him that can deal with the public and make him seem like a normal person. But I mean, like, he's one step away from Charlie Manson.
Yeah, I think that there is something, like you said, something like dark going on there.
Yeah, there's something really insidious with him, where there's nothing really.
That's a good word for it.
There's nothing really insidious with Joe Exotic. Like, he's telling you he wants to kill Carol. Like, he's not hiding.
Yeah, like Joe has his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah.
Joe's problem is that he can't conceal his problems.
Well, it's like in Boogie Nights when Amber makes the documentary about Dirk Diggler. It's like, he's a man of passion. Like, that's basically what Joe Exotic is.
Yes, Joe is very passionate, and he has a lot of problems, and sometimes his demons control him.
Wait. Paul is watching, like, he's not caught up, so like he doesn't want to get spoilers, but I can hear him laughing at something in the background. Paul, what are you watching that's hilarious right now?
They're just showing like all of the memes that Joe Exotic would send, like, that would make of Carol, and there's the one where he would just like Photoshop her head onto like an adult man
wearing
a diaper, and it's just, I couldn't help myself. And then there's some like weird blob that like her dud husband is like explaining right now. Oh, this is terrible what they did to Carol. Like, that guy.
We just talked about him. We don't ever like.
I'm on episode 4.
There's no spoiler with him,
He's
but
a
like,
dud.
Doesn't he strike you as a serial killer?
Oh,
He's just a loser.
Just to live with Carol, you'd have to be fucking nuts.
Yeah, I mean, big anti-Carol bias to him. Like,
he reminds me of Principal Skinner. He has nothing. Like, he's just a blank suit.
That's actually a really good comparison.
That's who he is.
I forgot about the Photoshop with him. There's so much to unpack. Like, each episode, and they will just...
Remember when he was showing the padlocks that he hangs off of his Prince Albert?
That's true. I
Like,
like that.
why was that even in the show? Like, what was the point of us knowing that?
Yeah, but it's a lot too. Like when they first show Doc Antle, and this is why there's something so insidious about him, is that he's so produced that he's producing the documentary people. Well, it's
like when he
along.
told them that he's going to go shake their hand. I'll shake your hand and say, "Welcome to the premises." And they're like, "This guy's a better producer than we are."
Yeah, and like he has everything. It's like he has this entire thing planned out. That's really the creepy part, because why is he letting them on the premises knowing that they're going to find out all of this stuff, that he basically has like brainwashed slave women living with him, that he like, I get it from his aspect. Like he's making everyone get fake tits. Like they're all married to him, and like, it's kind of crazy. And like, I don't quite understand why he's a part of this documentary at all. Like
because he raises big cats.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that raise big cats. Like you get one-offs with these like random other people too, but like he's not a main crux. He's clearly the third person of the big three in all of this. Like it's Joe Exotic, Carol, then him. But there's really no need for him to have a part in this at all, besides the fact at the very end when they do the credits, like, oh, he was rated in 2019. And
just rated like months ago.
Yeah, like and there's like no update on that yet either.
No, I went looking.
So, but like, why is he a part of this?
Who knows? It does seem tacked on. He also is probably pretty persuasive. Able just to convince these people. They probably spoke to him once. It's like, oh, you should talk to me too. I know all about this.
Yeah, but I don't even. But if that's the case, then why would he want to be a part of this? Like, you have to know there's no good that comes from this.
Egoism.
Yeah, that was more of an Joe Exotic thing.
No, Joe has a lot of problems.
Well, can we just talk about Joe's crew for a second? Because Joe's crew, there's something, although they're all semi-deranged.
They call themselves the Isle of Misfit Toys, don't they?
They do, but there is a family aspect to them, which is like kind of sweet.
Yes, like the lady without one of her arms. She seems like genuinely concerned for the people on that zoo. Yeah,
and like she didn't want. And maybe like it's just a different sort of brainwashing that happened from like Doc Antle's place over to Joe Exotic's place, that they're all part of like Team Joe Exotic, but they felt like, I don't know, like a real family in a sort of way, where like she didn't want anything bad to happen to the zoo. So she knew she had to get her arm amputated after it got bitten off. And the only reason that the skin came off the bone is because it got pulled through the fence, Tim.
Yes. God, that's terrible.
It's really awful.
There are some terrible scenes. Like, that's terrible. When they shoot those cats is terrible. Like, there are some terrible scenes.
I don't even remember when they shoot the cats.
Remember, you have to kill 5 of the cats?
Oh, yeah, that's at, like, the end, though.
I know, but still.
Yeah, but the way that Joe Exotic...
The scene where the guy ends up shooting, the reverse image of the guy watching the guy shoot himself is terrifying.
It is, only because, that guy genuinely thinks that, like, should we section off... Let's just go through Joe Exotic first. So you have his.
Well, that is a Joe Exotic thing, but
yeah, but like he comes in. He comes in later in the story because when they drop bombs on you every 15 minutes, like you think you know where this is going, and it's not. And like, but it all makes like, it's all like a progression. Like, in episode 1, like you think it's going one way. In episode 2, it's like, oh, that's weird. It's like, oh, Carol killed her husband. Maybe that's going to be a subplot. But the whole political aspect to this, featuring Joe Exotic, was, I think, the craziest part of the entire thing.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, he's going to run for president. It's like, what? What do you mean he's going to run for president?
And then, like, he does.
Then he runs for governor, and it's like, what's going on here? Why are people voting or backing him up? This is crazy. They know he's crazy.
He does. I mean, he was on John Oliver, and he felt like a celebrity after that.
Which, I mean, I don't watch that show, so I don't remember that scene. But maybe people knew about him before. I have no idea.
Well, did you see that? I mean, this is probably for a Canadian-only audience. But did you see the part where Sean Magender was just randomly interviewing him?
I did, and I knew him. I was like, where do I? And it's like, that's right. He's from this hour 22 minutes.
Yeah, so I guess that must have been a 22-minute skit. I would imagine. Like,
has to be.
It's a show that covers Canadian politics, but they're probably just like, Canadian politics aren't that interesting. We don't have any Joe Exotics running for council up here.
No, although those are the days of Rob Ford, probably. So maybe they did.
I guess so. It was hard. Like I didn't realize like the time. Like I know they were showing the dates, but it felt like the timeline was all congested because it started at like recent times. But I didn't realize this happened all like within the last year, like him getting convicted and everything like that.
No, I didn't. I mean, I didn't know anything about it till it happened.
So, there was a lot of people who knew about this story.
Okay, so I did.
Yeah, I didn't either, but I apparently it's just so weird that he was filming everything, so you had access to all this stuff. But the part that I didn't understand was the producer, Rick, he's all like triggered because all the footage gets burned down and he doesn't have his footage anymore. But where did the documentary filmmakers get all this footage if it was all burned?
They must have had access and copied it before. I don't know.
But was it just his footage that went down, or
Maybe.
like was all Joe Exotic's footage? Like that part was really confusing to me.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't clear on it either. I wasn't even clear why Rick was even doing it initially until I realized it was just about money.
Well, no, I think he was making like in one of those A&E documentary shows. I think that's I think that was his goal, because he was filming Joe Exotic filming his stuff.
It did seem that way, yes.
And like as someone who watches like Intervention and Storage Wars, like I definitely would have watched this show if it was on A&E.
Yeah, I agree.
Like what really would have been the difference between the Joe Exotic Tiger Show and Duck Dynasty?
To be fair, probably not much.
Yeah, is Duck Dynasty like still a show?
I think so. I think it's still on TV. I don't really know.
Did they get a big boost when they spoke at the Republican National Convention?
I think they were probably they're already at their height at that point.
Yeah, that felt like the peak for them. So
It does.
who are our favorites amongst the Joe Exotic crew? So we have Rick the producer. We have that guy who's in charge of everything with the really long beard and clearly a meth problem. Like he was, when they interviewed him after Joe Exotic like goes down, like he's a big part of like the end.
Yes.
He seems fucked the entire, like he doesn't seem so fucked while they're actually at the zoo, but like when they're interviewing him at his house, like after the fact, he seems out of it the entire time.
Yeah, it's not good.
So you have him, you have the guy with no legs.
I think he's my favorite.
You
the
have,
manager without legs. He seems like a nice guy.
He did seem like a nice enough guy, although he was the guy writing their names on bullets too. So
I know. They're all crazy.
We have the girl who lost her arm, which I'm not even sure what her job was.
She was it said it every time her name came up, and I don't remember what her job was.
And then you have his two husbands.
3.
Yeah, but just off the hop, you have the two husbands.
Yes.
The receptionist, who one of the husbands leaves him for, so she's working there as well. Is that everyone? Like from the main crew that we get introduced to at the beginning?
At the beginning, I think that's it, yes.
So then they add this Jeff guy, Jeff Lowe, his wife, that, I want to say his name is Alan. Is that his name?
There's Tim.
Wait, who's Tim?
The guy that Jeff was like fighting with all the time. Remember they're screaming at each other on the phone?
No. Is Tim the guy who ended up being the informant?
I can't remember now. I just know that there's a Tim in that crew.
Okay, so you have Jeff Lowe and his wife, and he brings his like handyman with him.
Yeah.
So those 3 are people. And then that guy who became the informant who also owned like strip clubs and a car dealership, who there was a really weird plot point made about him selling a stolen Hummer to one of the other guys, which I don't understand whatsoever, because he's clearly still driving the Hummer. Like, did no one repossess this?
Then there's the campaign manager.
Yeah, then there's the campaign manager. I feel like that's it. Is that
And then the other husband.
And then the new husband that comes in later on. Yeah. So there's all those people. It's quite a crew.
It is a heck of a crew.
So do we think, like, as they come off, if you had to vote for most normal person from the Joe Exotic crew, it has to be the campaign manager. Right?
Yes, I was going to say he is the most normal. But the thing is, he knew what he was getting into, and he's just decided to stick around.
Yeah, but it's no different than like, after Joe left, he was still there, which I just could not figure out.
I don't understand why. Like, why are you not running away from that?
Yeah, like if he was just there for Joe and trying to prop up Joe and run his campaign.
But he wasn't there for Joe. He was there for himself. He wanted to run a campaign. He didn't care who it was for or what it was for.
Yeah, but he was still there after the campaigns were over. Like even
That's
after
what is so strange. Yeah.
Even after Joe left, he was still, I don't know if he was an employee of the zoo or what was going on, but he was still there.
Yeah, he's just hanging out in that trailer. It wasn't clear what he was supposed to do anymore.
Well, there was also the part too where they found out that it was bugged, like the antenna. Did we find out who? Like, it was very unclear to me who actually bugged it. I guess it was the informant guy, but was it?
That would be my guess. Yes.
So the campaign manager we deem as most normal, although Joe Exotic ran on his platform. I wish I had the screenshot of it. They threw like what the platform was
on the bus or whatever it was. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they said, well, the Libertarian Party chose our platform.
Yeah,
Which is like lower taxes and less government. And
well, I just remember the first two things on it were pro-choice and pro-Second Amendment.
Second Amendment
were the two big selling points of this campaign.
Well, he's a libertarian if he doesn't know it.
It is like I can't even figure out what Joe Exotic's politics actually are. Maybe he does actually kind of seem very libertarian as
he does, even though he doesn't know it. He's just in favor of being able to do what he wants to do.
Yeah, do whatever you want to do. That's my platform.
That essentially is it.
Yeah, it's just like when Springfield had the Do Whatever You Want festival, which is much better than the Do What We Tell You to Do festivals.
Festival that mysteriously began in 1946.
Yeah, with the German settlers started in 1946. Yeah, so I guess of his main crew, like, do you have a favorite of the three husbands?
The third guy seemed the most genuine.
Yeah, well, he was the only one that was actually gay, too, wasn't he?
It does seem that way. They never explicitly say that, but they don't imply that he was cheating behind Joe's back.
No, and they made a point to really say that Travis and the three-tooth guy are definitely not gay. But it was
Correct.
weird. But it was weird because they introduced this whole like meth subplot. Like it's kind of inferred just by looking at the people. But they don't really introduce this until like episode 4 or 5 or whenever.
And they introduce it very quickly. Then the guy kills himself and they go away from it.
Yeah, like I just found that really weird. Like that would have been a better plot point at the beginning, I feel like.
Yeah, it's one of those bombs that you mentioned. They throw it in there. You go, what? Okay. Huh? And then next thing you know, they move on.
And I feel like it makes us try to sympathize. Like the documentary sets up Joe Exotic to be the sympathetic figure of all of them.
And there is a patheticness to that whole thing. Yeah.
There is. And I think if you bring in the fact that like Joe Exotic was picking up stragglers at a bus stop with the promise of meth at the very beginning, maybe you don't sympathize with him so much. But once you hear it like 4 hours into it, and you already know all these people, you're like, oh yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. But
he's just desperate and lonely.
Yeah, he's a desperate, like he meets this last guy in a chat room. Like
2 months after they had the funeral.
And then there's the really sad part too, like where they're talking to the guy who killed himself's mom, and Joe invites him to be a part of the wedding. Like that part is like that's a very dark part.
Very dark. Or the living memorial that they have set up with like the truck that's parked up on a hill.
I didn't find that. That seemed very nice to me.
It just seems strange. And yeah, there's a wedding taking place 2 months later, and invites the mother-in-law of the dead husband. It's like, that seems odd.
But you say like they make a big point that Joe stops caring. Like it started out he was caring about the animals. That's why he got into this, and he genuinely did seem to care about the animals. And then fame took over, and that's what he was really concerned about. Like him doing that weird performance wearing a priest collar at his husband's funeral was like
so strange that he's wearing a priest's collar.
Yeah, why?
So strange.
Like, is it just a costume?
I wondered that too, because I was like, why does he have a clerical collar on? It's like, I wonder if this is just a fashion statement, or whether he thinks he's a priest, or maybe he is a priest, because that wouldn't shock me either if they told me that now. Oh, by the way, he's been an ordained Methodist for the last 25 years.
Yeah, there is very little that could come out of nowhere from this and really like surprise you at this point by the time that it's done. But that part was super sad. But like it was weird. I know that they had to introduce his second husband, Travis, as a character, but he was sort of like a non-factor in this entire thing. And just like if he hadn't have killed himself, let's say, would have been
mentioned in 2 sentences and moved on.
Yeah, like he wouldn't even be included in this entire thing. It's like they had to build him up as someone who was a part of this because of what happened.
And the footage that they had.
Yeah, that's crazy that they had the actual footage of it.
That was disturbing. I had to stop and go. I had to stop the video and go, oh my God. And like, that's when I rewatched it. I was like, I wonder if this is staged. And I was like, because the guy doesn't react much. And I was like, well, maybe it isn't staged, because who would stage this?
Well, and they did make the point that like he was always doing pranks. And like, I think if you see that happen, like,
well, he's like, this is this type of gun. There's no clip in it. It can't fire. And he put it to his temple. Bang. I was like, oh my God.
Well, that's the same thing that happened to Bruce Lee's son, didn't it?
Oh, maybe Brandon Lee?
Yeah. Isn't that how he died? He shot himself in the head with a gun, like a prop gun that he thought was unloaded, but it was loaded. I think that's what happened to him.
Oh, I'm not sure.
So I think that we're done with Joe Exotic Screw, unless you want to talk about his campaign a little bit more. And just, you seem like someone who would have tuned into one of his shows had you known about it.
Absolutely. He does. Look, he's larger than life.
Like, you would have been one of the 80 people on the Joe Exotic web stream every night. Like, in a weird way, like, his day job makes him, like, how much money was he actually making? That was the part I couldn't figure out either.
Well, it seemed like you're making a lot of money from selling those animals.
But it was like, here's $5,000 for a tiger. Like, that's, in the grand scheme of things, that's not that much money.
No, but you've got a bunch of tigers, and how often do those tigers gestate, and how many cubs are they having at once?
But like what did Doc Antle say? He said it costs what, $10,000 a year to feed just one of the animals?
Something like that. Yeah, I think that's right. 10,000.
And then Joe Exotic was getting like raw meat from Walmart that had expired, so he had cut it down to like 3. Or if like,
but he was also using it for the pizza. That was the saddest thing.
I mean, this is great savings.
And he's like, but no, the saddest thing was the people was like, you won't find a better pizza around.
But that's
I thought, oh god, I've said things like that about things that aren't this.
I mean, based on the quality of foods you eat, you might be eating like expired meat pizza from Joe Exotic's Pizzeria. But it wasn't even Joe Exotic that said it was the best pizza around. It was one of the other idiots who worked there.
Well, exactly. And the whole allure of it is that you got to eat pizza next to a tiger cage. They work next to a tiger cage. Why is that? Anyway.
Well, no, they were just eating pizza at the pizzeria. The pizza wasn't just for the workers. They were selling it to the people that came to the zoo.
I guess, but how many? But they were already there to see the animals. So what if you're next to the tigers while you eat pizza? You could just walk next to the tigers and not eat pizza and have the same experience.
Yeah, but if you're going to be there all day at this like makeshift zoo, you probably want something to eat. There was also like every time that you looked at it in the background of that pizzeria, because he used to do like the turkey, he would make the turkey for the people, which I thought was pretty nice. Because
yes.
And that's the part I want to circle back to that towards the end when he said he paid Alan the $3,000. Like, it came through the turkey service, but every time you looked in the background, it just said the washroom was out of order.
Yeah, it's sort of like a Big Bang Theory thing with the elevator always being out of service.
In a much sadder way, although I found more humor in Joe Exotic than I did in the Big Bang Theory.
The first couple of seasons are pretty good.
So you wouldn't eat pizza next to a tiger?
I don't think it wouldn't be a selling feature. I'd be afraid of Mr. Tiger trying to come through the cage to get the pizza.
Yeah, but it's not a selling feature. It's something to do once you're already there. It just keeps you close with the wildlife.
I like big cats, but I don't think I'd want to go to some makeshift zoo.
I mean, where else are you going to go see big cats unless you go to Animal Lion Safari?
Real zoos.
Yeah, but they don't have the up-close personal experience you can get at Joe Exotic Zoo.
That is certainly true.
Well, who do you think had the best?
But Joe can be mean, too. Like, remember when Joe was really mean to that cat? Like, when they accused... What is it that lady said, that she spread, like, anchovy oil on his shoes or something?
Did she say that she did it or someone did it?
The way she was telling the story, she's like, oh, well, if someone wanted to get him, they would do this. And I was like, that seems a very specific thing to say.
Yeah, well, I think that he was just more or less upset because the things he thought were attacking him. So I could see being like panicked in that moment.
Yeah, he's talking really meanly to the kitties.
You wouldn't do that if they were trying to attack you?
I don't know if I would threaten a cat to, I'll shoot you between the eyes. Like, that's a poor cat, he doesn't understand. Don't talk to him like that.
Yeah, but you also don't want to be mauled to death.
Okay, but what is yelling at them going to do?
I don't know. It gets out your frustration because you're panicking.
Well, if anybody should not panic, it should be someone who's grown up around big cats and knows how to handle it.
I guess so. Who do you think had the best zoo?
Well, Doc Antle had the best zoo.
You think so?
Well, yes. Now, all three of them had zoos. I don't care what she says. Hers was as much a zoo as anybody else's.
Okay, I thought this too, and I don't feel like the documentary made a good point of saying
She
that.
goes on and on about how these animals need 400 square miles to roam free. In the meantime, she's here cooping these animals up in cages no bigger than the ones in Oklahoma or in South Carolina. Like, come on.
Like, was the entire point that she's exactly the same as them? It's just she has more money to make herself seem like she's just based on the name that she has. It's a sanctuary, and she's a do-gooder. And she has millions of dollars to promote this stuff. What was the thing that she said in every single one of her videos? Hello, kitties and kittens, or something like that. It's real cringy.
Yeah, she's a cringy person. I can see not liking this person.
But they all seemed uniform in their hatred of her. It's just Joe Exotic hated her way more.
Oh, yeah. Well, because he saw her as taking the bread out of his mouth. And he's also prone to emotional overreactions.
No.
He's a shoot first and think and ask questions later type of person.
Or shoot dynamite and ask questions later type of guy.
Exactly. Things are not fully thought through by Joe.
No, he's very reactive in that sense.
Yeah.
Like, do you believe that he paid the guy to go kill her? Because I don't necessarily believe that.
I do, because he's so impulsive that I do think he did. It's such a paltry amount of money that I just think he did.
I find it hard to believe. I don't find it hard to believe because listen to who we're dealing with, and it just seems so weird. Like, it seems like Jeff Lowe and his crony guy who was gonna go kill Cheryl. Like, they seem to be gloating about the fact that they set him up for it, didn't it? Isn't that the vibe that you got?
I think they were implicated too.
But as of right now, there's no charges against them.
No, but we'll see how long that lasts. If not, I'm sure he's committed any number of other crimes.
Well, I mean, Jeff Lowe didn't they both get immunity from it based on the information that they gave?
Yes, but I'm sure he's committed or will commit other crimes.
Well, as it ends, so Jeff Lowe takes everything over. Like, his whole weird side business of taking the Lions to Vegas to get women to be in threesomes with him was just a really weird side plot. I just didn't see.
Very strange.
Was that episode 4 or episode 5?
4, I think.
Because he might be the most villainous of all of these people. He was just a bad person.
Oh, he is villainous. Like when he's taking his poor wife. They're talking about how the baby, she's about to have a baby, and it's like, as soon as the baby's born, we can get her back to the gym. It's like, oh my God. He wants a nanny, but I get to pick out who the nanny is.
Right. Well, they both want to sleep with the nanny. His wife, you don't get a whole lot from Jeff's wife, but she seems to be completely on board with everything that's going on.
I guess, but the way he talks about her with her in the room is just so ungallant.
Yeah, he's not a real gallant fella, Tim.
No, but it bespeaks his character.
I did enjoy that he admitted that his casino to casino bus tour with live tigers on it was actually kind of a bad idea.
You don't say.
So, who is the other guy that he pairs up with at the end? What's that guy's name?
I think that's Tim.
That's Tim? It's a really short name.
So.
It's a short first name, last name. But it seems like they get screwed. He gets screwed in all of this too. He ends up footing the bill because they try to move everything from where Joe Exotic had it to the Texas-Oklahoma border, where it would just be easier for people to get there. And as they make a really harsh statements, people in Oklahoma are poor. So, it's not good to have it in Oklahoma. Geez, shots fired at Oklahoma.
Yeah, really. My goodness.
Not a terrible idea.
It's an insane show.
Yeah. Should we talk more about Carol killing her husband? She definitely did that, right?
That's the implication.
Is there a case around it the other way where is there a chance that she's a complete innocent in this and she just kind of got roped into this documentary?
Oh yeah, it's possible that she is so convinced of the rightness of her cause that she doesn't seem to realize how bad she's going to look in this whole thing.
Yeah, but is there?
She is crazy.
She seems like a crazy person. Yes.
You mentioned invisible cat friends, or every article of clothing that she owns being cat stuff.
Yeah, but
Tim, being allergic to cats.
If your luggage is leopard print, it's very easy to find at the airport.
Yeah, that's a distinct. Lucky her.
It's not. That's the one pretty smart thing I think she said.
I didn't. She knew all the names of all the animals in that weird graveyard that creeped me out.
Well, there's just kind of swing back to the cult stuff that goes on. You had the legitimate cult with Doc Antle with his
Antle
with his wives that weren't allowed to leave the premises, didn't get paid and had to work 365 days a year. It was just weird to have that subplot of that woman who had left.
Yes, I agree.
Her in Iowa, I found that was just a really weird part of the story. It gave.
But every time they weren't talking about Joe or something to do about Joe, I was less interested than when they were talking about it.
Yeah, it was like the Itchy and Scratchy. Let's get to the fireworks factory.
Exactly. It's like, okay, there's this other guy. Great. I guess there's a story here, and it intersects at some point with Joe. But like, let's get back to what Joe's up to.
Yeah, the only other guy in the movie who I found like super interesting, and he was only in like episode 2, was the Miami dealer that was cutting open snakes and hiding cocaine in them.
Good God, that's right. I forgot about him.
Yeah, like he seems super duper interesting. I can't believe all these people talk to the documentary filmmakers.
No. That wasn't the guy who was like, oh, there's enough venom in this vial to kill everyone in this room twice over, was it?
I think that's the same guy, yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, it's like, this snake is 23 years old. Like, okay.
Well, he was the one who was taking credit for like Scarface was based on me.
Yes.
That guy. He was down he was down in Miami, and I think he was buying the stuff from her. But there's a cult-like persona to Joe Exotic and the crew that he kind of assembles. There's like there's a cult of personality, at least with him, where people just kind of rally around him. He finds misfits. He's the leader of the misfits. And we hear about like what, Doc Antle's wives end up getting paid, that kind of thing. They don't get breaks. Like, it seems like they're more or less brainwashed into doing this stuff. At least the people with Joe Exotic, like they know they're working for shit wages, but they seem to be okay with it.
Yeah, there's like a cause. At least some of them think there's a cause here. Yeah.
Well,
or just have been around for so long. Like that Manor's just been around there forever.
Yeah, and it does seem like they feel like working there keeps them, like they came from either nothing or they were in a bad situation, and this at least makes them feel like real people, as like a part of like a community or a society. That it seems less. Well, it's kind of the same thing. It's like I said, it seems less insidious than Doc Antle's stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
But when you go over to Carol and she has all these volunteers and there's like a 5-year like level of like, that's just as crazy cult-like.
Very, very strange.
But it seems more like it's on the up and up. You know what I mean?
She just wants to hug every cat.
No, but she can't because she's allergic.
And that would be crazy.
But she has an entire like, she has so many volunteers. Like the only way that you could run one of these things is by basically having free labor.
Yeah, well, she's not making any money because she refuses to profit off these things.
But she has to. Well, I mean, I guess she made all her money when she killed her husband. And like, there's that whole subplot too about like his lawyer. And it seemed like his lawyer knew what was going on, but like he didn't quite know how much money he had. And like some people are guessing, oh, he had $3 million. And the lawyer says it's at least $5 to $10 million. But based on like the amount of money that she spends, and he had like 3 planes and stuff like this, he must have way more money than that.
Yeah, planes are very expensive.
I mean, planes are like, he's not, riding out in a G5, but the upkeep, a place to store it, a hangar, like they had a ton of property. They're buying exotic pets, and like money seems to be no object for her at this point. That either she's profiting under the table or that guy had a lot of money.
I think it's the latter.
And she was selling off the stuff too, and then blamed it on the dead husband. Like, oh yeah, yes, I used to sell cubs, but that was all like his thing. When he died, I stopped doing that.
Yeah, how convenient.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy. I don't know. I found it very intriguing.
What about when they said, yeah, Rick was a different type of investigative reporter. Here he is setting himself on fire.
Yeah, but there is remember that YouTube video of the woman stomping on grapes?
Ow.
Yeah, her? Yeah. So I feel like he was that kind of reporter. He was like an on location, go do stuff type of reporter. And he had, I gotta say, great voice for TV.
Oh, totally. But just, he scared me to look at him.
Yeah,
he looked unhealthy.
Yeah, man, every time you see him, he's smoking. Like every
I
single
know,
time.
but you could be smoking and not look completely unhealthy. He looked like ill.
Yeah. Well, what would you put the over-under on packs of cigarettes a day he smokes? I'd say he's a 3-pack-a-day smoker.
Yeah, if you can't do an interview on TV or for a movie without smoking, you're at least a 2 to 3 pack a day person.
Do you think that since he owned the Joe Exotic footage, that he's the one who profited the most? Like he acts like as a narrator throughout this entire thing. Do you think he's actually profiting off this documentary, since technically he probably sold all the rights to the content that he owned to these documentary filmmakers?
You've got to be making something, even though he does express remorse for it. I think, yeah, I do think so.
So
why else would he want to be involved?
That'd be my whole thing about it too. Like, and it does kind of paint him in the best light of anyone in this entire thing.
Oh yeah, because on multiple occasions they come back and he says, "Well, I tried to tell him this, or I tried to tell him that." It's like, yeah, okay.
Mario Tabrau is the name of the Tiger owner from Miami who said he was the Tony Montana Scarface guy.
Oh my God.
Is there anyone we haven't hit on, or any topic that came up in this that you think we need to dig into a little bit more?
That this is a world, that owning big, large, exotic animals is a world?
Well, it kind of goes back to the point of no matter what it is, it's like whether it's a documentary series or if it's like a show that we all really like. So something like The Sopranos, yes, we know about the mob, but that was told in such a way that you saw insight to the personal lives, like the real lives of these people that you don't really get in movies, where you see a little bit of like what happens at home in Goodfellas, but it's just like Ray Liotta yelling at his wife and like hiding cocaine. Where in The Sopranos, they have like everyday problems that real people would have to go into. Yeah. And that's like a world people don't know about. Like on The Wire, you go into this world that like viewers don't know about. And any good documentary series kind of does the same thing. It's like, I didn't even know this world existed, let alone like what's the day-to-day life of these people actually like. So, I mean, that's really the big hook of any documentary series or any program in general.
I agree. It did not occur to me that there was a world of people out there, or at least I didn't think, I'd never thought about it, that they're living with a bunch of tigers and that's how they make their money.
I wonder,
like when he's in the goddamn convertible with the lion just cruising around.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
Like little stuff like that. Like, what is going on here? Or the fact that they own gorillas.
Well, I thought that was really sad at the end when he talked about.
Very sad when the gorilla puts his hand out and I was like, "Oh God, get this off the screen."
But like he showed remorse for that. Like, he feels like. I don't want to say like Walter White, but like the character arc of Walter White. I mean, Walter White expressed no remorse by the end of it. I guess he saved Jesse.
A little bit,
but it did feel like Joe Exotic had remorse about all of this stuff. It's just he couldn't stop himself from doing it.
Correct. It was sad. He's a tragic figure.
Yeah, it's just he seemed like he wanted. Like obviously he was fucked up.
Well, yes,
but like he tried his best to struggle through and try to live the most normal life that he possibly could.
His demons just got the better of him.
Yeah, and I still don't understand where he was like, you couldn't have made that money day to day. Like, I just don't understand where all the money was coming from with him.
Well, there's revenue coming in with the zoo, right?
How much money could that have zoomed? Like, how much? Like, they were
People were buying those tiger print underpants like they were going out of style. The markup on that is probably 95%.
Guess so, but like, all he did was spend his money on ammo and buying 5 trucks for his first husband.
And the pink camo gun.
That's right. He did love that pink camo gun.
Yeah, some people would laugh about a pink camo gun, but whatever, let them laugh. I like it.
You know who's a real weird guy that we only touched on briefly? That guy who owned the strip clubs and was the informant.
Very, very strange fella.
I still don't understand how he got roped into this entire thing in the first place.
They could have expanded this out to 13 episodes easily. There was enough material.
Yes and no, but they also, if this was just 5 episodes and they had just made it a bit tighter, I think that like this show will go away. Like this isn't going to be
totally. It'll be Making a Murderer, like you said. It'll go away.
Yeah, but Making a Murderer we still reference today, like the Steve Avery stuff, like him like going to WrestleMania, the kid going to WrestleMania at some point, like that felt like it had legs. That and the Jinx came out at the same time, and I think the Jinx was just a much better show. I mean, it's HBO produced, like it's high-end quality documentary, but people like, it was right off the heels of Serial too, where true crime stuff was really big, and it remains really big. Like that's such a big thing, especially in the podcast.
So this is true crime.
It is, in a way, the crime aspect of this isn't really the hook to it, though.
No, but it's what the story in the end is about.
Sure, but that's also, like, episodes 6 and 7 of this are kind of terrible.
Yeah, they're not great. I mean, they're sort of trying to wrap up a narrative, and they're just sad. I mean, there's just as much sadness as there is funniness in this show.
Oh, you know who may not have been a good policeman? That guy who was investigating Carol's husband's murder.
No, it almost seemed like he didn't want to investigate that hard.
I don't really... I don't blame him. Like, I feel like he did what he could do initially, and he's just like, what am I going to do here? And like his whole, like his side of the family, they got 10%, like to keep their mouths shut and this kind of thing. I thought Carol did a really good job of like, she's clearly crazy, and she has that like crazy look in her eyes that are too far apart the entire time.
She does have that crazy person look.
But you don't ever see the vindictive side that other people talk about with her on camera ever.
No, I think it is clear that Joe despised her far more than she despised Joe.
Yeah, but I also get the sense that she always talks about how terrified she is of Joe and all this, but that never translates when she actually talks about it. She seems like it's kind of a laugh.
Well, yeah, where Joe takes it very personally.
Yeah,
She's
trying to put Joe out of business.
Exactly. Joe sees her as a threat to his survival, where she just sees him as one problem amongst many in the world.
I want to go back to that Jeff Lowe guy for a second. So he cuts a check for, I think it's like $35K, and gives it to Joe Exotic to pay for his lawyers at one point. And then that's to grease the wheels for Joe to put the zoo into his name. So Carol would have to refile everything in terms of the lawsuits and everything like that. But if he was so poor, where did he get all the money?
It's a very good question. Maybe from casino to casino lion businesses.
Maybe so, but like he had the rent, he was behind on his Lamborghini payments, the mansion that he had in, like, it just seems like a really bizarrely elaborate plan to suck in someone like Joe Exotic who had no money to begin with. Like, was the asset of owning the zoo really worth it?
It had to have been. Maybe that's where the money was coming from. You said, where's Joe getting his money from? Maybe that zoo and the ability to breed those animals brings in a lot more money than you think. I mean, just because they said he got $5K for that cub doesn't mean that's what he was getting.
Unless there was just a lot more on the go than they had kind of laid out.
Which there probably was. There's probably God knows what else going on there.
Well, you know what? Like, sneakily, again, go back to Doc Antle for a second. Like when Joe spills the beans to PETA at the end of it and gets all of these people in trouble. So the way that I understand it was he was breeding these lion or tiger cubs, or liger, although he doesn't like that name, which I thought was like a really weird aside that they spent 5 minutes on. But after they had outgrown their ability to be cute for the people to see, that he was just like incinerating them? Is that what's going on here?
Yes, burning them. Like putting them in his crematorium. It's awful.
You probably can't trust someone who has an on-site crematorium.
It seems like a very good piece of advice.
Because at least with Joe, when he had shot the lions in the head or whatever it was, like at least his case was that he was putting them out of their misery. He's like, it's either darts or shoot them in the head. Like they're going to die. I'm going to put them out of their misery. I mean, if that was true, at least that feels a bit more humane than what the other guy was doing.
I agree. Joe is not as bad in terms of what he's up to than the other two. But he is up to bad stuff. But like he's like not a bad person. If you know what I mean? At least the sense you get about him is he's not a bad person.
Yeah, and
he's full of mistakes.
I wonder if it's showed that way on purpose, or it's because we have all of the footage of him and we see not necessarily like his day to day, but we don't get like up close and personal with Carol or Doc Antle. Like you only get like your selected clips from them that are like clearly sit down interviews where we see more of a real life from Joe Exotic, that he seems more like a real person.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. There is some biasing of the audience towards him just because we spend so much time with him and know so much more about him.
All right. I think that's it. Paul, where are you at in episode 4 right now? What's going on at the point of the story where you're at?
Joe Exotic is currently running for president. I'm just being introduced to his campaign manager, who we found in the ammo section at Walmart.
Yeah, he's Discount Cust.
This is going to be an interesting. This is going to be an interesting way for me to watch. He's literally introducing himself right now.
Yeah, that guy is Discount Cust.
First impression is that's not much of a compliment that Pat is.
No, it's not. That's why I don't agree with it. Spoiler: Joe Exotic becomes president.
All right, Paul can't hear you, but Tim said, spoiler alert: Joe Exotic wins the presidency. Turns out he's just actually Trump. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna remember this long term, but it's gonna have a collective spot in all of our memories because it happened at this weird time of when it came out.
Because it happened during the quarantine.
It happened during the quarantine, and everyone's sitting at home, and like this is a thing to both. Like we're doing a podcast about it. We're going to. Like there's an online discussion about it, and you're just gonna have when people have like their virtual. Have you had any virtual conferences yet with people? Like
I have. No.
Like you have. I mean, we can talk about quarantine stuff here at the end because I think this kind of goes hand in hand. I'm curious to see if Netflix has more of this stuff in the bank to come out like every weekend. Like maybe they had, like if you were Netflix, let's say,
I would be shooting it all out now every week.
That's the thing. Like if they had 6 months of documentaries like this docu-series and they had one scheduled to come out once every 3 weeks, like you would put them out once every week, right?
Here's the thing. When this is all over, no one's going to want to stay home and watch Netflix. So get it out the door now when you've got them. Just keep sending it out. That's what you got to do. Own the story as much as you can.
I happen to agree with that unless they think this is going to go on a whole lot longer than everyone else kind of expects. Like you're sort of a doomsday type person, but
Not doomsday, but I think it'll last longer than most people wanted to hope that it does.
It feels like there's a resignation amongst people that this is going to go on for a really long time, but there's also people's hope that it's not going to go on for a really long time. So they don't want to concede that into reality just yet.
Yeah, it's the stages of grief. Eventually you get to acceptance. Not everyone's quite there yet, but you'll get there.
So, like, what have you been doing to pass the time? Like, you played online poke with our friends the other night.
I actually did.
Oh, you didn't? So we had friends
I
who
couldn't
went...
figure out how to download. Apparently you can download apps on computers, unbeknownst to me. I thought apps only went on phones and tablets.
Dude, you have a MacBook, right?
Yeah, but I didn't realize you download apps on computers. Let you download apps on phones.
Are you on your computer right now as you talk to me? I believe you are, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so just scroll down. You know when you go to the bottom of the screen and your bar comes up?
Yeah.
So the icon, that's the A.
Yeah.
Click on that for a second.
Oh, yeah, okay. App Store.
That's the App Store. That's where you can get your apps.
Aha. Who knew?
So I'm going to throw out a few things. You've been doing your reading list too. Maybe we'll talk about that here in a second. So Jackbox.tv is a site. It has like game packages. This is what I was telling you the other day. So it's usually, so what you do is you plug it into either, I have a program, and this is one nice thing about the internet. I ask people for different devices to help me stream. Like I don't have a Switch or an Xbox or a PlayStation, but all of these are like applicable applications for that as well. I downloaded a program called Steam, which can kind of work for this, and we can actually play Risk through it if we all download it, by the way. We can play online Risk if we all download Steam. So keep that in the back of your mind. But what I can do is I can set up some of these Jackbox games. There's trivia games where you can like buzz in and play things. There's drawing games. Usually you just like export it onto a screen in your house through one of these devices, and basically the controller is your phone, and you play everything through your phone. So it's super easy. Everyone has a phone. And everything mirrors itself onto the screen, so you can play it through that way. What we have to do is I'll set everything up through these games on my end. I'll give you the code. You punch in the code on your phone, so you'll be able to see it all live. But then we Zoom conference in all together. So I share my screen with everything going on Zoom, and then we can all see what the screen is and all play from our phones across the country.
Okay.
Does that sound like something you can do?
I think I can try.
Do you think that people are going to come out of this a lot tech savvier than they ever thought they would be?
Some people, yes.
Wouldn't you say that most people are? Like my grandparents, both my parents and grandparents, I'm trying to FaceTime with every day. Now, my mom can do the FaceTimes, and my grandma still calls texting faxting, but they're figuring it out, like, incrementally. They figured out online banking yesterday.
Yeah, no, there are certain people that will, but there are a lot of people who will just read more, watch TV more, and not have to interact with things that will, at least not yet, have to interact with things they're not comfortable with. Like, most people are not going to order groceries online. They're still just going to go themselves if that's what they usually do.
True, but like my grandparents also, this is probably devastating. Like my grandfather is probably very upset with this because my grandma loves to shop. Her hobbies include buying things at malls and then returning 90% of those things back to the malls for like a way to kill her afternoon. But she just figured out how to order things off Amazon.
Well, there'll be lots of packages coming.
Lots of packages coming. Although, like, eventually, like, Amazon's still going to roll, but, like, will they stop selling, like, non-essential things, do you think?
Eventually.
How long do you think that would take?
They will discourage, once they become overloaded. Once it becomes, like, over, like, more than even, like, Christmas time busy, and they just can't handle it. They're going to have to say, okay, we can only sell the following things.
That's going to be rough.
Well, you know what? We all have to make sacrifices.
True. Imagine the internet got cut off for everyone.
Well, I don't think it would ever get cut off, but I do think...
Like, let's just say that for whatever reason, the internet went away tomorrow while this was all going on. People would riot.
Probably, although they wouldn't know where to meet up.
They would just meet up in the streets with their pitchforks, and I don't know exactly how that would happen, but people would lose their minds.
I agree that having internet connection is a necessity, and governments know this. This is why they're like making Netflix go slower in Europe, because they know they cannot afford to have the internet crash.
Yeah, and I mean, they're making it go slower, but you can't watch things in 4K or 1080. You have to do 720, right?
Yeah, for the time being. And if it becomes more and more pressured, they'll bring it down and they'll slow it down, and they may even only have streaming services available certain times a day, like whatever they got to do to make sure the internet itself doesn't collapse.
Yeah, I guess the fundamentals of getting information to people and having them access in order to order things is going to be far more fundamental than streaming things on Netflix. But streaming services right now are providing a gigantic service to keep people sane. And the longer people can stay in their homes and be sane, the better it is for everyone, because there's going to be a breaking point for people sometime.
I agree. I mean, that's why the internet is not a series of tubes. It's not a truck you dump something on.
Well, what do you think ends up coming out of this? If we've now kind of conceded, especially in times of need like this, with where society is at, and we order things from our phone, we order things off the internet, get essential services. Like, is the internet an essential service? Because I know for years they've been talking about, and they've tried it out in different cities, basically just making public internet.
I don't think that will ever happen. In the same way that like water is essential, but in many places water is not public. In the same way that electricity is essential, but electricity isn't public. I can see the government spending more and more money to build more and more towers for internet connectivity, and it's now on par with electricity and water and hydro and all those things. Which is an innovation in and of itself.
I could see there being sort of a public-private option for internet, where it's probably only works in like larger cities where there's a ton of people. But when you go to like the airport, the internet sucks. Like
yes,
it's super slow. Like there would be that version of free internet for people wherever they're at in the city. And then if you wanted,
why would it be free? Water isn't free. People need water even more than they need the internet.
No, but if you could figure out, like, if this would probably be an endeavor, someone like Bill Gates or Elon Musk would just launch a satellite that would provide this. If people there's enough public support for something like that, and if they think that, if this becomes a case where only the rich can afford the fast internet and only the poor, it puts people on a higher playing field. Like if you can't afford internet in your day-to-day life, this at least gives you an option to bring you up. And it doesn't sound like it would be that costly once you had the infrastructure in place.
No, I don't know. I don't think we're going to get quite to that point. I mean, remember people went nuts about net neutrality going away, only to be proved they didn't know what they were talking about. Saying, the whole internet's going to be slowed down because of this, and nothing happened because people, again, panic and don't know what they're talking about. I'm not concerned about that. I think the internet will be a commodity like other utilities. It's a utility now, but I don't see the complete or even partial nationalization of such a utility. Not unless it's a time of dire emergency. I don't see it happening.
Well, if it was ever going to happen, it feels like if this thing goes on for a while, that now.
Well, it's not broad enough yet. It's not broad enough yet. Like electricity could become nationalized if electric companies can't stay in business because people can't afford to pay electric companies their money, and electric companies can't make payroll. I can imagine a world in which the government has to nationalize it briefly to control things during an emergency. The infrastructure isn't there yet for the internet.
Well, I wanted to ask you this, just on a very serious note. With the talk about giving people the $2,000 per month or $4,000 per month, $2,000 per kid, it seems like the big holdup is who would actually qualify for this. And this is different country to country, obviously. We're in Canada. It's different for us, like applying for EI or mortgage deferrals or rent deferrals, whatever it might be. But at this point in time, it seems like they're really trying to work out the kinks of, well, who qualifies this and who doesn't qualify for this. Wouldn't this be the time just to bite the bullet and say, listen, people are going to take advantage of this, but that doesn't matter right now?
Send everyone a check. It's a moment of crisis. This is not an economic collapse because of irresponsibility. This is an economic collapse because we have chosen to shut down industries. Send everybody the money, and people who are getting it who would usually be means tested, just in the campaign, just encourage them to give it to charity. Encourage them to give it away. A lot of people will who don't need it if you encourage it, but give it to everybody, get it out the door.
Like if it's going to be a thing where people are getting all uptight just in general about whether it be welfare or employment insurance, there's always people trying to scam the system, and there's always people that will be able to scam the system.
This is a dire crisis. We haven't got time.
I completely agree. It just should be something people like, who cares? Like, you need to get people money. If people get too much money, well, fuck it. Then so
it's not the worst problem in the world to have. Exactly. I'm 100%, and I'm pretty fiscally conservative. Get this money out the door now.
Yeah, there needs to be something. You almost have to treat it like a wartime affair. Like
it totally is. Yeah,
and we've already seen companies convert to making other things, which
exactly like it's a crisis. Well, all hands on deck.
Well, I know that I believe it's all the American car makers are now, their car manufacturing plants have been converted that they're now going to start making ventilators. I know here, the first, I think it was Old Mill Street, is making hand sanitizer. They've only made like one batch so far, but it's all for like frontline public service workers. Sure. So, and it's all free. Like they're just being like, screw it. Like,
yeah, Labatt has done the same thing.
Yeah, I think that people are starting to. I think that people are starting to come around to the communal aspect of this, and there also is the financial incentive too. One, it's good branding for yourself, for your company, and you looked like you were there in the time of need. That will only reflect well upon you in the future, I would think. And two, it gives you just a different life too. Like, you're still putting things on. I'm sure that there's going to be government subsidies for anything doing this. It's going to keep people employed if you can keep them safe, and you can keep people safe and build the sense of community. I think that's also a good thing too if you're a corporation.
Agreed. Every corporation is in this as much as everybody else. I mean, the economy collapsing if it really collapses, brings everybody down. And the same way that rising tides lift every boat, sinking tides bring everyone down. So trying to flatten the curve, planking the curve, getting things finished and getting business back to normal once the crisis is in every business's economic self-interest is just as much as it's in a sense of a moral self-interest and a social self-interest. What kind of employees are you going to have come back to your business who have been isolated for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks? The longer it goes, the more social damage there's going to be and emotional damage that you're going to have to work through. So it's in everyone's interest, no matter if it's a big business or an everyday person, to do everything they can to resolve this as quickly as we can.
All right. Anything else to add about, we're going to be doing a top 10 movies, me, you, and Jeff. Top 10 movies to watch during the quarantine. That'll be
I'll say Rear Window is definitely in my list.
Oh, okay. There's going to be 10 of them in there. I assume King Golf is going to be in there too.
All right. Well, I won't give the other 80% of my list away.
Yeah, so me, Jeff, and Tim will be doing that. We have a bunch of content that we are still have in the bank. We have our full movie bracket coming out. We've already recorded the 2000s, whittling down of the list. That's a 2-part show. We're going to get to the 1990s as well. We got some Cust corners in the bank. Plus, if anything sports-wise actually happens, I will be here to talk about it because, hey, content. We might do some NFL power rankings at some point too, but there's going to be just more of anything. We're going to try to continue to keep up and provide content every single day. One, it keeps me sane to come on and talk about this stuff and actually feel like a semblance of doing my regular job, although I'm talking out of the realm of normal things I do. But hey, would you say that if there's any show, like sports podcast-wise, that is set up for this kind of thing, it's probably me and you talking about this stuff?
I was never worried for one moment about a lack of content.
No, in fact, I've been doing more content recently than I have. I had usually during this time of year, I'm like settling down, getting prepped for the Masters, waiting for things to happen, but like really pacing myself because football tends to be such a grind. But we're on like football schedule right now.
Absolutely. This is the people are, and people have said very nice things on Twitter because of the good work you do. People have said this show was a tiny, maybe sliver of an oasis, get through their day, and what higher praise can they say?
Yeah, that's true. I thank everyone out there for making me, Tim, Jeff, whoever, and Seeley and Paul, Cody, a part of your quarantine. We hope we can kill some time for you. I mean, have a baby, have a 1-year-old running around. That tends to make the day go fly by. It might be tough to do right now. Although, do you think there's going to be like a baby boom for kids after this is over? Or do you think people are too scared to have kids right now?
I don't think there'll be a baby boom. I think that's oversold because who knows how long this is going to last? It could last even longer. I mean, we're going to have a boom for months. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Like, well, I mean, this is kind of the terrifying part. Is like my wife we're due in 9.5 weeks from now. Like the hospital that we have is a COVID-free zone, but I mean, I don't know if they can guarantee that. Like they're not treating people for the virus at that hospital. That has been quarantined in the city for people with like heart attacks, broken bones, walk-ins. But if people are walking in, then who the fuck knows, right? And having babies.
Exactly. Or what if someone has a heart attack who's asymptomatic?
This is true. Or people who are pregnant who potentially have it who are asymptomatic as well.
Yeah. It's best not to think about that.
I suppose so. I'm hoping everything, I doubt it will be resolved by then, but hopefully we're on the downswing that, at least with that hospital, it stays. But I mean, I'm fucking terrified about that. That in particular is what scares me most.
Yeah, no, it's anxiety inducing, but Marcus Aurelius tells us to only worry about the things that are in the control of our power and to let other things go.
Is that what you had for book recommendations, Marcus Aurelius?
He was one of them, yes. His Meditations is one of the finest pieces of literature ever written.
What were some other ones on that list?
Last night's was The Diary of Samuel Pepys, which is great.
Is that about the guy who invented Pepys, your hero?
No, it's a diary that a gentleman in the 1660s kept religiously for a long time. And it's like a no holds barred what life was like for him in the 1660s in England. It's very cool. I have lots of cool books. There are books that I think are good that people will like. Everything from sports books. I recommended The Game by Ken Dryden the other night. That's a great book. So it's all over the map. All
right. That will do it on this episode of the Pat Mayo Experience. Like I said, thank you for making us a part of your day-to-day during the quarantine. When you're at home sipping some quarantinis and listening to the Pat Mayo Experience, you may as well get into a draw for 100 DK bucks. Sub to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, and something you like about this show, and boom, you'll be in that draw for 100 DK bucks. Also, tell a friend. People are hurting for stuff to get them through the day. If you think that they may like the Pat Mayo Experience, let them know. We could use more subs always. I mean, we're in here grinding content every day, so more people that watch it, more people to listen to it. I mean, that's the goal of all of this and help you get through your day. So anyway, thank you all for watching. I want to thank Tim for being on the line, and that will do it for me. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!